and welcome to the Higher Learning Exchange podcast, a space for innovators to push the boundaries of education practice and technology. I am Carmen Tomas, your host today, and I'm thrilled to welcome Ronan Gruenbaum to talk about innovative program designs. Hello, Ronan.
Hello, Carmen. Thank you for having me.
Ronan Gruenbaum is the Global Director of Undergraduate Learning and Development for Hult International Business School, where he prepares students for the world of work. Before joining Hult, Ronan had a career specializing in digital marketing, social technologies, online learning, and e-communications. Welcome, Ronan. Well, I'm really excited to be discussing today the redesign of the programs of study, which was very impressive. So I came to learn about Ronan's impressive design at a forum. His redesign is extremely ambitious. He basically meets all the goals that are really that we need to address in the sector, like aligning programs, with employability skills. But also, he's got an impressive design of placing students at the center of learning. He has challenge-based learning, and not satisfied with all of that, he also extended the design to address mindsets, values, and mental health. So, Ronan, please, in your own words, can you tell me a little bit about what brought about this change? How long ago did you start? Just a little bit of the story.
Thank you, Carmen. So, Hult was built as a school that is all about learning by doing. This is now our 20th anniversary, 2023. It grew out of the Arthur D. Little School of Management. And it's always tried to ensure that we have a practical component within the program, whether it's bachelor or master's or MBA or executive MBA. We wanted to ensure that students are learning by doing, by engaging with industry and working on challenges, not just 5 or 10-year-old case studies of how something might have happened in the past, but actually learning how to do things. And we've always been focused on this. But we realized a few years ago that what we were doing still wasn't addressing the skills gap that employers have talked about, and not just from our own research, which I can talk about a little later, but you just have to Google it. You'll find lots of reports over the last 5 years from all kinds of international organizations explaining that there's an enormous skills gap, and universities are not giving their graduates the skills that the employers want when they're recruiting a new employee. Generally speaking, they don't care if a student is able to do a net present value calculation or an ANSOF matrix for market expansion, because those things can be taught by the company in a couple of days. But what they really want are students who are able to go into an organization and work in a team, lead the team if necessary, or follow the team. The students are able to communicate, and the communication, of course, is through a myriad of ways. It might be through presentations. It might be being able to write eloquently. It might be how to just communicate in a suitable way with your colleagues and your suppliers and your customers and so on. And of course, there are many other skills, and I can talk about that a little later. So we realized we weren't really addressing that properly, and we were first looking at how can we bolt the skills component onto the old program design that we had, which was, to be frank, rather a traditional one in terms of the structure of individual siloed courses. And we realized that that wasn't going to work, not properly. And the only way to do it was to break down the program into its constituent components and rebuild it. So the analogy I like to use is, imagine you've gone to Legoland and you're looking at a large iconic building, whatever one you prefer. It could be the White House, the Taj Mahal, the Empire State Building, and you break it down into the thousands of constituent little bricks, which are the topics that we do want students to understand, like net present value, like ANSOF matrix for market expansion, and so on. But We then threw in a few more buckets of bricks, and those are all the skills and mindsets that we are teaching and assessing our students. And we built a completely new building where everything is intermingled. And that's quite fundamentally important. And again, I can talk about that a little bit later as well, on how we looked at pedagogical research to build this. So that's how it came about, really. It was a realization that to do what we wanted to do, which was to teach our students by doing and prepare them for the world of work, we needed to build a new program.
So tell us what you came up with, if you want to describe the new architecture, the new Lego building that you created.
We realized that essentially we were able to structure the program, and these are key differentiators we feel in what we were doing before. The 4 pillars are the, challenge learning. So as you mentioned, every module that the students do is focused around a challenge. In the first module they come to, which is called Core Module 1, Startup Challenge, the students are put into teams and they have to create a startup right from the start. This is the best way we felt that they could start learning business, is by actually thinking about all the components that they would need if they wanted to develop their own business. Now, we're not expecting students to come up with a unicorn after 7 weeks of study, but the process of doing that engages them with almost every aspect of business. And so it's a great way to get them working together. But for that, and I'll just use that as an example, for that startup challenge then, we have the marketing and entrepreneurship and management and economics disciplines, as well as all kinds of the skills assessments, the skills teaching and other areas. All are intertwined, focused on delivering what the students need to be able to deliver on that challenge. Not learning some random theory, which, to be frank, has no basis at this point. That can come later on if it's relevant.
And that happens from that happens from the start,
Right
That's
from the start.
One of the first experiences I would
Yes.
Okay.
Day one, they're asked to start innovating, and we give them a framework, which we talk to them about the framework to start thinking about being creative and being innovative, and start thinking of new products, new services that others are not yet delivering. They're right at the beginning, they're starting to think about who is their customer, who is a competitor, doing competitor analysis and so on. And everything is focused on the challenge. So all the modules, it's focused on a challenge. So everything that they're learning is focused on helping the students deliver on that challenge. That's pillar number 1. The second pillar is the skills development. And we can go into that in more detail a little later. But essentially, we focused on the 5 mindsets, which are the foundation of the program, which we feel these are the mindsets that we want our students to adopt, to build, to grow, to develop, so that when they leave, they will be distinctly, recognizably Hult students, because they will have an entrepreneurial mindset where they are always thinking about how can they make things better. It's not about entrepreneurial mindset is not about building a startup. It's about always thinking that you can improve the status quo, that you can make things better from a process to a product to a supply chain, to how one deals with customer issues. Everything can be improved. There's no perfect organization in the world. There's no perfect product. So we want them to adopt this entrepreneurial mindset. Another mindset is the ethical mindset, that every decision they make throughout the program, but also in their lives, their private lives, and hopefully throughout their lives, has an ethical thread running through it. So this might be the simple thing of how they will treat their Uber driver, or they treat the waiter or waitress in a restaurant, or the cleaner, how they treat, when they're working, their customers or their suppliers or the people who work in the team with them. Here at Hult, it's how they treat each other. It's how they treat the faculty and the staff, but the staff, that also includes the cleaners in the building. We expect everyone to have the same respect. But it's also thinking about when they go into business, or if they're working on these challenges, Are you going to outsource production to Bangladesh if you know that possibly that particular factory will then outsource to child labor, or if they have a factory and there is a polluting process, are you going to invest more to stop to ensure the process is improved so it doesn't pollute, or are you just going to let it pollute and then factor into your cost of business the fine that you're given if and when you're caught? The ethical part is fundamental to everything. So we've talked about entrepreneurial, ethical mindset. There's three more. The growth mindset. Growth mindset is not just the Carol Dweck idea, but of course it comes from there. It's about learning from mistakes. We all make mistakes, and the only way to get better is to learn from them, not just continue to repeat them. And there's another component which is very important in terms of working as a team, working in an organization, and that is, can you take feedback and say thank you for the feedback? Are you able to actually ask for feedback regularly? And can you take it without getting defensive? And of course, are you able to give constructive feedback to others? So that's very, very important. We have the global mindset. We are a global business school, and this is all about embracing diversity as a strength, that we want to ensure not just in terms of who you are working with and talking with. It's not just diversity, equity, inclusivity, and belonging, but that is an important component. But COVID showed all of us how we are all connected. It went to all corners of the planet, and everything we do has impact on others outside our communities, no matter how small that community might feel for some people in some parts of the world. And then the fifth mindset is self-awareness, the number one predictor of success as a leader. We want our students to really understand that the way they perceive themselves may not be the way others perceive them, that they have to mind the gap and work on that. And those mindsets are built into everything. Then we've got the skills. As I say, I'll talk about the skills later. Yeah. The third pillar is the student development coaching. So every single student has a coach that has been recruited for this purpose. Some of them have retrained from other roles on campus, but these are coaches. But it's not simply the idea of coaching that you might have at the executive level of coming with your goal and what you want to achieve, and then working with your coach to get to that goal. That's one component of it. But the coaches are also there to help the students understand their strengths and weaknesses by looking at the skills dashboard, looking at the mindsets. They are also there to help the students understand their career trajectory and those early the early options and things they need to think about for a particular career. Before, in later years, they then have a closer contact with our careers department. But the coaches are also there, a bit like a manager. A good manager will develop their staff, and they will make sure that the staff are always pushed and stretched and understand that no matter how good they are, they can always try and improve in different areas and different ways. And also, a good manager is also going to pull someone up when they're not doing what they should do. Of course, not every student comes with the mindset yet of doing everything as they should, and we need to help them. We need to help them become these young adults, and that's an important part of the coach as well. And then finally, there's the student services side of the coaching role, where you want to make sure the student is fully engaged with the Hult community, and they're getting involved in the clubs and societies, but also that they are properly registered for the local health services, that they are seeking help and mental health care if and when appropriate, so that they really have that go-to person on campus who is there just for them. So every single student has to meet the coach several times a year, and these are mandatory meetings to make sure that it's not just the keen and eager ones who take the benefit of this, These are mandatory. So that's the third pillar. And the fourth pillar, very quickly, that's the portfolio. So rather than students simply coming out with a transcript and a diploma certificate and a CV or a resume, they can build their portfolio, which is where they can upload the slides from a presentation to a client, or the business report, business plan, maybe the video from a TEDx talk that they might have done. All of these things that that they've done at Hult, they'll be able to put on the portfolio to show future employers, rather than saying, "Oh, yes, I did a course on building a startup." They can actually show, okay, here are the schematics for our product design. This is the research that we did, and actually show that they know how to approach all these areas. So those are the four pillars of the program upon which everything has been built.
Yeah, and the portfolio makes complete sense because you've got these challenges running throughout. So that's brilliant. There is so much, Ronan, in this redesign, and I feel we could have 4 hours just unpicking each of these pillars. I'll be frank with you. However, I had to pick one of these aspects. So for today, and to start to unpick the sort of the complexity of each, of the design and all this stuff that has gone into redesigning the student experience from beginning to end. And again, at so many levels, I really like to focus on this aspect of, how you engage students, the use of the dashboard that brings together these values, skills, and competencies. And I find that, to be absolutely honest, I don't think I've seen many like your dashboard. Basically, I think, in fact, it's quite rare. So I think for the second part of this interview, I'd really like us to focus on that.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so the important part of introducing mindsets and skills into the program, we felt, was we have to do it properly. We can't just say, "Oh yeah, we're teaching communication skills because look, the students do presentations at the end of every course," because that's not even presentation skills. That's very, very broad. Are we talking about the student is able to produce very pretty PowerPoints or keynotes, or that they are great orators or speakers? So that's where I'll quickly go through to the detail. So the research that we did we did a big data approach, partnering with Burning Glass Technologies, where we mined, just for the bachelor program, over 5 million jobs globally for the types of jobs that our students go into. So the original mining went through hundreds of millions of jobs, but the types of jobs our students go into when they graduate from our Bachelor of Business Administration degree, all around the planet. And we looked at the skills that employers are looking for, and we aggregated them, of course. And we did this also for our master's program and MBA. But for the bachelor program, we were able to single those down to the top 300 skills, because most employers are actually looking for the same types of things. And in the top 10 skills that you would get, the top two, actually the top one, which is 50% more requested than anything else, is communication skills. The second one, collaboration skills. And then the other skills that we've gone for are critical thinking, creative thinking, which sometimes is listed as problem solving. Final skill is learning to learn. Now, this is actually not specifically listed from our big data approach. This is something, when we've been speaking to employers, they've been very, very clear about this. So a way to understand it is thinking about the McCall, Lombardo, and Eichinger model, the 70-20-10 model from the 80s, which is a good illustration, where they said that 10% of what you do in a job you learn through formal qualifications and training, 20% you learn through other people, so your mentors, your peers, your manager, your colleagues, etc. But 70% you have to learn on the job. And employers want their new employees, the graduates from universities, to be able to ask the right questions, to have the initiative and the common sense to know where to look for answers on who to ask when they are in a new role, because every single job is slightly different and will need some onboarding and training, of course. And learning to learn is fundamental to that. So we have communication skills, collaboration skills, critical thinking, creative thinking, and learning to learn. But as I mentioned earlier, communication is such a wishy-washy term. So with the detail, we broke that down into categories. We broke it down into, in fact, 16 categories. So under communication, you have general communication. So it doesn't matter if you're writing a report or you're speaking to someone or you're doing a presentation, etc. There, you still have to try and craft a clear message. You want to be sure that you're tailoring that message to your audience and anticipating counter arguments. And you want to be sure that you're making a convincing argument. So it's not just making a clear message, but is it convincing? Have you provided sufficient evidence to support it? So that's just an example. Then, of course, we have within communication, as well as general communication, we have verbal communication. So how you're speaking and your body language, your demeanor. We have written communication, which is looking at grammar and spelling and referencing. We have visual communication, we have digital communication, etc. And this goes on. So for the 5 core skills, we broke it down into 16 categories. And for the mindsets, the 5 mindsets, we broke that down into 12 categories. But even then, how do you assess if someone has created a clear message? So even within general communication, as I mentioned, then you start thinking about, well, there's no point talking about general communication. You have to break it down into what that means. And as I mentioned, that's looking at things like, is it a clear message? Is it a convincing argument? And have you tailored your message to the audience? So we call those the practices. So we have our core skills broken down into 16 categories. And those 16 categories are then broken down into 39 practices. Like, is it a clear message? Those 16 practices then are so tangible that we were able to build them into rubrics. And so we have those 39 practices that feed through all the data into the categories, which then go through to those 5 core skills. So when you're looking at the dashboard, you see the categories, but you don't see the individual practices. Some are going to be assessed in some assessments, some will be measured in other assessments. For the mindsets, we have the 5 mindsets are broken down into 12 categories. Those 12 categories are then broken down into 22 practices. So all in all, 22 practices for mindsets, 39 for the skills. That's 61 practices. And these have all been broken down then into the rubrics showing what we consider to be a basic competence that we would hope students are able to achieve in their first 3 core modules at Hult. Then there's an intermediate competence we hope they will achieve as they progress through the program. And then when they get to their advanced specialization modules and the capstone core module 8, the Hult Business Challenge, we want them to achieve an advanced competence in these skills and mindsets. Now, what this has allowed us to do then is get an amazing amount of data, because every single assessment, whether it's a presentation, whether it's a business plan, whether it's even a observed discussion where we have an assessment where students in their teams, we record a team meeting, and the students have to identify by watching that recording, that video, moments when they feel that they demonstrated good skills practice for a particular skill, for example, active listening. And they have to also identify one where they think they really could improve and how they could do that. And this is to try and help students develop that self-awareness and reflect on their own learning, and also understand giving themselves feedback is also a good way to help them understand how to give others feedback.
So Ronan, can I ask you on that point? So are you getting an assessment from a tutor, and then you're also self-assessing? Is that on these key skills?
So the students must submit their 2 points, the good skills practice and the one that needs improving, to their challenge professor. The challenge professor is the one who holds the whole challenge together. There's challenge professors for every single module, and they aren't specifically teaching content. In some cases they are, but they are there to try and help the students bring the content together from the different disciplines, and help them focus on delivering the challenge. And they are focused also on helping students with their skills, particularly those skills of communication and collaboration, which are going to be so evident in the classroom, whereas some of the others will be outside. But every single assessment, of course, has a rubric for grading.
Yeah.
And within the rubric, we have elements of the practices from skills and mindsets. And the skills contribute towards the grade for that assignment. The mindsets do not contribute towards the grade, but we still we still score them, because both then the skills and mindsets are then also scraped from the rubric and aggregated to go into the dashboard. Now, we have a dashboard for mindsets and a dashboard for skills, as I say. And students don't get to see this they until the core module 3, so they'll have already been with us for a full semester and a half. By that time, the students, we have about 200 data points on each student across skills and mindsets.
By the end of the first semester,
Sorry?
yeah? By the end of the first semester, I'll be able to see a picture of my profile and how I'm performing.
Exactly.
Correct?
It's in the first half of the second semester, when they're doing their core module 3 future proofing challenge, that the meeting with the coach will then address the dashboard, and students will then be able to see the aggregated data towards how well they're doing or not with the core skills and the mindsets.
Wow. Okay, that's so impressive. And I'm going to get a little bit technical here, but how do you actually do that? Because I haven't been myself, working on how to grade rubrics, marking, and how to feed things into one place. I've not seen one tool that would sort of help throughout. So just give us a little bit of background into the sort of, what enables this.
Absolutely. So
from a very sort of basic point of view.
absolutely. So we built everything ourselves, and we had a great tech team based out of different parts of the world. Actually, there's really two main individuals that I'm thinking of who did a great job looking at, okay, how can we do this? So our student information system, where we have all the student details and grades and attendance and so on, we built this on Salesforce, and we call it My Student. And this has allowed us to do all kinds of reporting that on the old system that we used, which was a more traditional student information system, didn't allow. What it has also given is the ability for our tech team to really look in the back end and say, okay, what options do we have here for building these different components and displaying them? So, for example, the dashboard. So the dashboard is built on our student information system. We measure everything, of course, the rubrics and in the assessments on our learning management platform. We use Canvas from Instructure. We call it My Courses. We've been using it since about 2012. Well, not about, since 2012. I remember being, when I was teaching on the MBA program, the master's programs at the time, when we were piloting it. And we were able to find ways to use features that are built into Canvas to build out our skills and mindsets so that they can be built into the rubrics. It didn't require a huge amount of development on that side, but then all our grades anyway come through to our student information system, so My Students, and everything goes through there, where it is then aggregated across semesters, across modules, across time, so that we're measuring those skills and mindsets over the 3 or 4 years, not simply by challenge or semester by semester. And that's the challenge, that the grades, traditionally you get a grade for course X, and then you move on, you get a grade for course Y. And we really were clear that no, we want to be able to show the development of these skills and mindsets across the entire duration of the program.
Wow. Okay, that's so impressive, and thanks so much for explaining, because I do know that it's not simple. There's not one tool that will do what you're doing here. So thank you so much. I was so curious about that part. I really wanted to get from you some sort of nuggets, for other people to think about, in terms of what tools, and what sort of problems you think you faced, that you could do with having, say, some solutions worked out for you.
There's something that when I've been presenting this program, that I use a slide showing that quote, the apocryphal quote assigned to Henry Ford, but lots of people say he never said it, so I'm not sure. Where he the quote is that if I'd asked my customers what they want, they would have said faster horses. And I always think that that's quite a nice analogy to build something that is more fit for purpose for the new paradigm, where we do want students to be able to go into the world of work and adapt. I remember when I was in high school, I was told, "Oh, you won't get a job for life anymore. Those days are gone. You'll have maybe up to 7 jobs during your lifetime." And I realized about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, that, well, that's no longer true either. I'd say you'll have 7 careers. I am currently on something like my 6th career, where what I'm doing is completely different from what I was doing before. And as you mentioned, I had a life before academia, working in the industry, and so on. Now, for us to build a program that prepares students for this volatile world, a world where AI is going to be taking a lot of jobs, and this is something that we've built into our future-proofing module of how to help students differentiate themselves from AI. Because if they can't, they're going to be working for robot wages, $20 a month to get your subscription to ChatGPT or whichever platform. And so for students to be able to do more than that, they have to harness different capabilities than simply regurgitating knowledge and theory that you can get from a textbook, you can get from Google, you can get from Wikipedia, Wikiversity, etc. They shouldn't be going to universities for that. So to be able to build something like this, it's a bit like building, well, Ford didn't build the motor car, but it really is like, are you just going to whip your horse to make it go faster? And you're literally flogging a dead horse eventually. Or are you going to do something, even though it's very complicated? You look at how cars, even the early cars, if you go and look in a museum, they're still incredibly complex machines. But if we put to one side the terrible pollution and climate change that they have generated and they've been responsible for, if you want to do something properly, it might be complicated, it might be difficult. That doesn't mean you should avoid it.
Thank you so much, Ronan, for your time, your insight. This is a sort of world-class sort of leading example, for the world of education and learning design and student-centered learning. So I'm so pleased you've been able to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Carmen. It's been a delight.